Hello, and welcome to the Godot community for Visual Arts High School 3D. Our topics today include review, reinforcement, and reflection activities. And with that, we are going to discuss documenting work and maintaining a digital portfolio, the role of self critique and reflection, and course surveys. I want to start by talking about documenting work and maintaining a digital portfolio. Again, this is one of our Georgia Standards of Excellence, specifically reviewing portfolios collaboratively and individually to identify growth regarding mastery of craftsmanship, content, and composition. One of the few positives that came out of the pandemic is that it's forced me to use technology in a way that I haven't in the past. My experience last year required that I have students document their work for the simple fact that I needed to be able to see it to grade it. However, in doing so, students at all levels began to digitally warehouse images of their work. Before beginning any documentation of work, I think that it's worthwhile to guide students in photographing their work, and we will actually have a future webinar that discusses that. However, the documentation of work, especially at those beginning levels, I feel can be formal or informal. Some of you, if your district is capable, might be able to set up a digital storage space on your OneDrive. However, there are other ways to keep a collection of work. Students can create photo albums on their phones or their personal devices or school issued devices. You can collect images on a PowerPoint, whatever works for your situation. I think that probably the biggest restriction or hurdle would be limited storage space. So you may need to investigate, compressing files or converting image files to PDFs or something like that, where you aren't going to be utilizing so much digital space. Documentation should occur throughout the semester. This can include process portfolio or process images, as well as images of resolved artwork. The examples that you see on this slide are a series of process images that show the documentation of an in-process face jug. Again, last year necessitated that I have students post progress photos since many of them weren't attending face-to-face classes. And this was a way that I could see that they were on track and showing an understanding of the concepts being taught. As far as the uses, again, it's great for students to be able to see their progress, whether it be within a project or over the course. But it's also great practice for any students who are wanting to move on to AP or IB courses who require process documentation. Prior to last year, I would document beginning level student examples for use as a teaching tool to show a range of successes for a project and not necessarily for students to analyze their own progress. Now, students are able to use documented work to identify growth within their work. So, still using it as a teaching tool, but I guess a little bit more tailored to each individual student. Next, I would like to discuss self-critique and reflection. As teachers, we often reflect on what did and didn't work as a means to inform our instruction. Self-reflection and critique is really integral to growth. And that's true of us as a profession, but also obviously with our students. Students reflecting on their own work better understand or gain a beginning understanding of their motivations as artists, why they are creating artwork. Obviously, this is going to become more personal the more advanced the students are. They will be able to identify areas needing improvement, and the effectiveness of what they are trying to communicate, whether it be, again, maybe those beginning formal qualities and less personal, but then as they grow and evolve as artists, that more personal artistic voice that they are trying to communicate. Critique and reflection can be done formally with a more guided set of questions or topics to address. For me personally, I find that more structured reflection pieces work better for beginning level students, whereas more advanced students who've practiced critique and reflection as part of the process from the start can write about their work more independently and more informally, because they are already guiding their work with these questions in mind. Critique and reflection done throughout the course and over the course of a student's high school experience enriches the art making process. Students are able to analyze their decision making, the choices that they're making with media and surfaces. When their plans are changing direction or they're making revisions because of things that are unexpected. The role of epiphany and the role of serendipity in their work. Students who are accustomed to analyzing their work begin to show synthesis with materials and subject, which is really at the highest level of art making. And again, ultimately, students who move on to AP and IB art courses are better prepared for the written evidence that is required as part of these portfolios. As a teacher, it gives insight into the thought process of your students in real time and not just as an afterthought at the end of a project or the end of a course. Lastly is the course survey. I really like to give students a course survey. Again, this can be formal and specific or simply a few questions as part of a reflection. It could, at the very simplest, ask what was your favorite or least favorite project and why? Which project taught you the most about process or composition or technique? Which project most effectively demonstrated or allowed you to most effectively demonstrate the principles of design? You could ask, what they struggled with most. How effective was my communication? How effective was my delivery? Sometimes it's good to ask questions that might give you an uncomfortable feeling, because none of us like to be judged and we all like to think that we are doing a great job. But, the kids are going to be, for the most part, fair and honest. Obviously, we have to view the results with a grain of salt because you are going to have some instances where maybe students are not giving it the fidelity we would like for them to show all things that we ask them to do. But I think for the most part, these surveys can result in changes to instructional delivery, the projects that you're teaching, et cetera. They certainly have for me. Meaningful student feedback can be a good way to gauge teacher effectiveness. We are in a profession where I hope we feel it's necessary to be reflective of our practices and adapt to student needs. And this is a good starting point for revision. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found the presented information useful, and I look forward to meeting again.